I want to bring in my guest though. I'm joined with the man himself, always looking cool, Laith Marouf. How you doing, Laith? You doing okay?
Doing okay, just a little bit sick, but I
Oh,
slept a lot today, so I took a shower just before this, so I'm feeling better.
I'm sorry, man. It's funny. I got my cold medication right here myself too, so I feel you on this. Laith Marouf is an award-winning multimedia producer and media policy law consultant focused on issues of liberation, decolonization from indigenous nations to Arab peoples, and building broadcast capabilities for misrepresented, underrepresented communities of the world. And Laith, Free Palestine TV is where they can find you, correct?
Yes, on philippinestine.video, the website.
Excellent. The man does good work. Definitely check him out. Um, I need to start here. When I saw this, I thought, I'm very curious of Laith's take on this. This was Donald Trump. He is far more available than Joe
But
Biden. Because Joe Biden had to be to bed at 4 p.m. every day. His wife puts applesauce and tucks him in. Trump, I wish he did eat applesauce and go to F to sleep, but he doesn't. So this is him and his henchmen, his cronies, talking to the media. Listen to what he says.
you know how I feel about the Gaza Strip. I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate, and I think it's something that we would be involved in. But having a peace force like the United States there, controlling and owning the Gaza Strip, would be a good thing. Because right now, all it is for years and years, all I hear about is killing and Hamas and problems. And if you take the people, the Palestinians, and move them around to different countries, and you have plenty of countries that will do that, and you really have a freedom zone. You call it the freedom zone, a free zone, a zone where people aren't going to be killed every day. That's a hell of a place. It's you know what I call it, a great location that nobody wants to live in, because they really don't. And when they have good living, real living, where Hamas and all of the problems they have, the level of death on the Gaza Strip is just incredible. And I've said it. I don't understand why Israel ever gave it up. Israel owned it. It wasn't this man, so I can say it. He wouldn't have given it up. I know him very well. There's no way. They took oceanfront property and they gave it to people for peace. How did that work out? Not good.
It sounds like a Palestinian slave trade, right? I mean, he's talking about effectively snatching people, burlap sacking them, and sending them to disparate parts of the world, breaking away their family lineage and their land lineage. And I'm saying this as a black person, right? They did that to Africans. And yes, I know Africans sold Africans and everything else, but for all intents and purposes, if you ask me who is my great, 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 I have no idea. That lineage has been fundamentally broken. And what's funny is if you're in Europe or you're in some of these other countries and they look at you, they don't know what to make of you. And it's like, I'm an American. Oh, you from Africa? I'm from America. Because in their minds, their lineage is intact in a way that ours is not. And it sounds very similar to that. We're going to take people who don't want to go, we're going to send them to all parts of the world. And there's the secondary part where he's even talking about like Israel owned the land as if they were there first. That is super weird. Give me your take on this.
Yeah, obviously, Trump can't finish a full sentence. Everything that he says is so disjointed, and he just has weird ideas that he throws out and puts together. The Gaza Strip, the area of Gaza, is one of the most important places on Earth, geography-wise, because it's on the pathway between Asia and Africa, and it is a port area. Rafah, the city, existed for over 6,000 years, and now it's gone. For the first time in 6,000 years, there's nothing left in Rafah. It's all been destroyed. So the colonists and the imperialists behind them, they want to take the land and erase its history and start from zero as if they were the first there. And as we saw from his presentation there, Trump is cherry picking history and starting points of history, and that's the Zionist and or the colonialist in general. Like the United States itself, fabricates its own history and erases the history before it. That's how colonialism works. And you mentioned the cross-Atlantic slave trade, and I would add even more to that is that colonialism fabricates identities, right? So there is no such thing as a white person. Prior to the colonial furnace in the United States that smeltered all European identities into this new whiteness in the face of the forcefully merged indigenous nations into Red Indian, right? And there's hundreds of indigenous nations that have names and so forth. And then the forced amalgamation of all the African nations that were made into a black person in the United States. So there's no such thing as a white person, there's no such thing as a black person, there's no such thing as a red person, but that's all the product of colonialism. And as we see right now, what we have just seen over the last 80 some odd years is the fabrication of a new identity, this Israeli identity, bringing together all these followers of the Jewish religion from different parts of the world, from Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe mainly, that have different languages and different cultures and different musics and food and so on, and merging them, smeltering them in the colonial furnace into this identity. So can the colonialists be successful in erasing the Palestinian identity and presence and making this Israeli identity permanent? I don't know. I don't know. We look at the problem of why the Americans were successful in fabricating this whiteness, blackness, redness, is because the indigenous nations were so far away from the rest of the world that they didn't receive any support. And I actually wonder sometimes, I want to go into the archives of the Ottoman Empire and the archives of the Moroccan kingdom to see the exchanges of what did other people think while the genocide of the indigenous people was happening in the Americas. I don't know. You remember Morocco was the first country to acknowledge the existence of the United States. I wonder, can I find in the archives of the Moroccan kingdom messages from the ambassador about the slaughter of indigenous people? We don't know. But point is, right now, the Palestinian people have a wider depth, which is the Arabic people. Up until now, we've seen most of the Arab nations being dominated and defeated by the West. But we have even a bigger depth, which is this Muslim depth. And there's geographic continuity between Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims. So the supply and the resistance will continue. How long can the West maintain fighting this fight as they are fighting the rest of humanity, as we see with the tariffs and wars in Ukraine and other places? I personally think that the end of the Zionism is coming, and it's going to be also the end of white supremacy in general. You're muted. Muted. You are muted.
Thank you. I'm sorry. There was a clip where there were like bread lines in Israel. I mean, like ration cards and everything else, and people were effectively standing in the street waiting right here. Is this real? I mean, like, I guess it could be real considering the war and everything else, but and it's funny, Dan Kovalik often makes the point of saying Israel's going to collapse from the internal contradictions and the stress of what it's trying to accomplish in regards to the war. And they're pointing out that all of these people are effectively raiding for ration cards. I don't know if you know, what is the economic situation in Israel, considering they're continuously at war, their economy is shot. You have millions of people that effectively fled because they didn't necessarily want to be in a war zone. And, the intent of Israel is supposedly safety as they colonize other countries and other areas. But this doesn't look like safety, nor does this look like prosperity. It seems like they're living off handouts from the United States because, for the most part, the war is the thing that has consumed the fascist state. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, the economy right now of the colony is really destroyed. There's no such thing as an economy they have. I mean, historically, the economy of the Zionist colony has been inflated artificially by the donations and money sent from all the Zionist organizations in Europe and North America, and the never-ending supply of weapons for free that the West is giving this Zionist colony, and add to it then the forced relocation of factories into the Zionist colony just for the hell of it, just to make jobs there. So Microsoft or others being forced to open factories there, although they could open a factory in a neighboring Arabic country and have a cheaper labor force and the bigger markets to sell. So all of that was fabricated realities. And the minute the Al-Aqsa flood started, it crashed all of that. And currently, the industrial zones of the Zionist colony are not active. There's hundreds of thousands of people that were supposed to be working in these factories that are been recalled for service, and you have all the cutoff of supply in general. Even the donations from the Zionist, organizations in the West has been directed towards the warfare and the weapons and so forth, and the price tag of the weapons and shipping those weapons has increased drastically because of course, the Yemeni blockade of the Red Sea, and we know at least 1.5 million, 2 million Israelis have already left, and so the country is in tatters. It needs nonstop financial support. And this is why, actually, I think Netanyahu's and the Zionists, although we see it as we look at right now how much power the Zionists have in the West and the attacks on civil society and education and all of that we see in the West. Although it looks like the Zionists are even stronger now in the West, I feel they have less of a negotiation cards in their hand with the imperialist forces. So, it's all an act right now.
Yeah. Well, I would tell you that many of the polling, or much of the polling that has come out of the United States, has shown that the perspective of Israel, even among Republicans, is like negative. I think like Republicans are the only ones where it's like 50% or something to that effect. Every other group, it's underwater. And so this pressure that they're effectively applying where it seems strong is being done so because the public and the perception of the public sees them in a particular way as these just monsters. And so you might be right in this, right? In the way that they're taking a more muscular action because they have to take a more muscular action. The soft pressure that might have been there is no longer working, is no longer effective, after which people seeing what they're doing. You may be entirely right. Um, I was talking to my audience about this notion of a tipping point and how when, let's say, a country tries to do something and they're not able to do it, that it shows the world a side of that country basically saying, okay, they failed at what they were trying to accomplish. They are not what we thought that they were, and the power that we thought that they had, they don't necessarily have. Netanyahu came out after his meeting with Trump, and he said something that really caught my attention. And I haven't heard it aired all that much, but I think it's somewhat of a big deal. So I have a take on what I think is going on in regards to Iran. I think any negotiation Iran makes, the ultimate objective is to destroy Iran. But this is Netanyahu. Now, I don't know what he's saying, so I'm not going to play the volume. But what he says in this is that Iran needs to blow up its, let's say, nuclear capability, and they need to use the Libyan model in regards to Iran. That is an interesting phraseology because usually when the Libyan model is discussed, like when they said about North Korea, when it was like, yeah, we're going to use the Gaddafi option or the Libyan model for Gaddafi, for North Korea. North Korea flipped out because what North Korea knows is that Gaddafi gave up his nukes. He was dethroned, sodomized with a machete, with Hillary Clinton cackling. We came, we saw, he died, effectively taking ownership of the fact that they murdered him. Richest country in Africa, effectively turned into fire with them selling black slaves. Iran is negotiating with Trump coming up this weekend. What are your thoughts on these negotiations? And just to make it clear, Iran, just one last point. They came out, the government said, look, we're open for honest conversation. In earnest, with candid vigilance, we are giving diplomacy a genuine chance. The U.S. should value the decision formed despite their prevailing confrontational hoopla. We do not prejudice. We do not prejudge. We do not predict. We intend to assess the other side's intent and resolve this Saturday. We should reflect and respond accordingly. What are your thoughts in regards to these negotiations? Iran said we're not going to negotiate directly, but they said, but we will negotiate indirectly. Personally, I don't see a big difference between those things. Some of the reporting came out and says if the negotiations go well for the first few hours, they may turn direct in regards to the negotiations, considering both teams are going to be there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the negotiation teams have just arrived in Oman. So I don't know if they're going to start today, the talks, or tomorrow, but they're already there. Obviously talking about Libya as an option is a stupid thing, for Netanyahu to do. But also we have to remember that this man is a lunatic, and he's basically telling the Iranians that you're going to be killed no matter what.
Which,
you hand them over without bombing you. Yeah.
It's correct.
That's basically what he's doing, and it's part of the psychological warfare. There is already around 300,000 American soldiers in the region, two aircraft carrier fighter groups above and beyond all the full bases from Syria to Iraq to everything in between there. And so are we on the edge of the war? Yes, we could see ourselves in a war any minute. Does Iran want to have a war with the United States? I don't think that Iran wants to have a war with the United States. Iran just wants to be a sovereign country that controls its own internal and foreign affairs, and that's not allowed in an imperialist world. So can I predict anything? I really can't predict anything because things are moving so fast in terms of Trump's entanglement with so many conflicts around the world right now with everybody. He's having a fight with everybody on the planet. Can he have a war with Iran while he's having economic war with China, and economic war with Mexico and Canada, and maybe an invasion of Panama or Greenland. I have no idea. Honestly, we've entered an unpredictable time because of how desperate the imperialists are, and the Zionists also under them, to hold on to power. I think the Iranians will try their best to at least drag these negotiations until there's the rest of the global map gets more stable. There's no point of negotiating really or signing any deals right now with Trump for anybody, not only for Iran, because he and the American establishment and the Zionists with them are all have lost their mind. They're unable to formulate, and you can't trust anything because they can flip their opinion within 24 hours, as we saw with Trump's tariffs on China. And one day he says something good about Canada, the next day, same thing with Mexico. So it's you're dealing with irrational crazies now, and until they settle, there's no point of signing anything with them.
See, I guess my feeling is I wouldn't trust the United States, regardless of the administration. I mean, signs with Obama, the JCPOA. Next president comes in, Trump trashes it. Then Trump is like, hey, make a deal with me. And he's saying, make a deal with me, while ignoring the fact that Israel was violating the ceasefire that he himself got the entire way through. And the ceasefire was used only as a stalking horse to load Israel with weapons so they can continue a murderous murder campaign and genocide. Same thing with Ukraine. We're going to get a 30-day ceasefire, and Ukraine violates it all the way through. Trump has nothing to say about it. So it's kind of like, okay, well, how do you sign a deal with a person like this? And I want to add something else, because my context is shaped by this. Meaning, from my point of view, any deal that they make is purely a stalking horse with the idea of going after Iran either at a later date or allowing a violation of that deal almost immediately. And so, to my point, what's the point of signing it? I agree with you. Drag it out. But at the end of the day, what Iran needs to understand is that this is the U.S.'s mindset.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who had used to work for me. And one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
That's my context.
Yeah.
And by the way, that is exactly what they've done. Like, meaning they have assiduously stuck to that, regardless of the president, whether it was Obama, whether it was Bush, whether it was Trump, whether it was Joe Biden, and now I'm coming back to Trump, where it seems like it is the culmination of an idea where they're like, all right, everybody else is gone. Sudan is a basket case. Iran is the last man standing. Let's get to work. So whatever deal that Iran makes, it should be thinking that is the goal. Give me your take on that.
Yeah, look, the decolonization stage after World War II, there was all these countries that escaped colonialism, became republics like Syria and Iraq and Libya, no matter what we want to think about their leadership. Iran was the last of those on the list there that to escape colonialism and overthrow the Shah.
Mhm.
The West had appointed all these fake monarchies in the Arabic and region and Iran also. And with the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States went on a rampage to try to recapture every country that escaped colonialism. And starting from, of course, the Arabic world and Yugoslavia. And so we're still living this. We are, the collapse of the Soviet Union, no matter what we think about it and how many problems or failures that the Soviet Union had, opened up this age that we live in. But now it's been 30 some odd years of American rampaging on the planet. And obviously the Americans would have liked to finish off all these decolonized countries as fast as possible so they can surround China and Russia and finish off those two. That's really what it is. But because of the specifically stubbornness of the Arabic people, the United States got stuck in the sands of Iraq and Syria, even though mass deaths and the destructions of the country, the US still haven't really won anything. They're still stuck there. And this is why China was able to rise between 1990 and now, and its economy becomes so powerful only because of the crazy Arabs that didn't give up. Okay? And similarly, Russia would have became a porn hub, okay, if the Arabs gave up in the 1990s and handed over their country and didn't fight back, okay. And so the whole world, honestly, yes, I know it may sound self-promoting here, and I personally don't think Arabic people are better than anybody else, okay.
Yeah.
But I really think the whole world owes the Palestinians and the Arabs in general a huge debt. The millions of people that died in Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen are the reason that Venezuela is not already invaded, are the reason Cuba is not already occupied, are the reason China is so powerful today. The whole world owes us a debt. And I know Arabs are the most maligned people in Western culture. And there will come the day that people will remember our dead and our martyrs and the gifts that we give humanity.
I hope so. From your mouth to God's ears. Laith, man, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate these interviews. You have a fantastic day. Laith Marouf, he is award-winning multimedia producer and media policy law consultant focused on issues of liberation, decolonization from indigenous nations to Arab peoples, and building broadcasting capabilities for misrepresented and underrepresented communities around the world. Laith, where can people find you?
You can find us at freepalestine.video, and we're on all social media platforms. People can follow all the content that we're producing from the field here in Lebanon and in the West Bank, and can donate if they can. We'd really appreciate it. Jamarl, please take care of yourself and get better, inshallah. Okay?
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You too. Be safe. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Laith, shout out to him. The man is